AI is one of the most fascinating developments to occur in the past few years in tech, and part of what makes it so exciting is the pace at which these new developments are occurring. So, if you recall, it was only a few months ago that ChatGPT came out from OpenAI, and since then, in just a span of 5 months, we've seen them supporting plugins, a bunch of new plugins coming out from big companies like Wolfram. We've been seeing new upgrades to the base model like GPT-4. We've seen Google and Meta develop and release rival models. And then we've even seen some interesting developments in terms of applications and like use, such as auto GPTs, where you can basically get ChatGPT to run multiple prompts to generate even more exponentially complex results. These are just a few of the developments that have happened over these past few months, and they're still going. There's more and more. I'm sure even in the amount of time that I'm talking about this, something new has come out, and I'm already behind. So basically so much is happening in such a short time, and that's a big reason why AI has disrupted so many industries. So if that's something that you're worried about, or if that's something that fascinates you, or even if you're completely unaware, you just want to have kind of an idea of what's going on, I highly recommend getting acclimated, getting informed, getting some hands-on experience with AI as soon as possible. So that is where Dify comes in. So Dify lets you simply create and operate AI native apps. You can use it with ChatGPT, GPT-3, GPT-4. So Dify, it's an acronym. It stands for Do It For You, because that's largely what it does. It does a lot of the hard work for you. It's also a portmanteau, so it's a combination of two words. It's define and modify. So that's basically where you come in. You define what you want it to do, you modify the prompt, and then it does everything else for you. And what that means is if you want to make a web app that uses one of the most cutting-edge AI models that are out right now, it's as easy as just defining and modifying, and then everything else is done. You don't need to know how to code. You don't need to know how to design a website. You don't need to know how to host a website. All of that is handled by Dify, and all you have to do is come up with a really good prompt, or maybe a data set. That's it. That's all you gotta do. It's really cool. It's really exciting. I'd love to show you more about it, so let's just go ahead and dive in. Okay, so here we are. This is the main screen, the dashboard for Dify. As you can see, it's still in beta. I do have one example app, and I will show you how that works, but let me just go through what's going on around here first. So you could just create a new app. That's how you do it. You can also modify whatever apps you use. You can change the logos, the little emoji that it uses. This one is, I think the default currently is a banana, so, but we'll try a new one when we do an example. There is support for plugins coming soon. It's not quite there yet, but I'm sure you're aware there are several interesting plugins for ChatGPT, things like Notion and Python and YouTube, Dropbox. So those are all going to be compatible very soon. The other thing that they've added is datasets, being able to, create datasets to use with the app. Let me show you just the most basic app that you can make. So I made an app that plays a game of 20 questions with the user. So when you make an app, there is a link, there's an API token, so if you want to integrate it, it does support JavaScript. So I know I mentioned that you don't need to know JavaScript, but if you do know JavaScript, it's a lot easier to integrate this sort of platform on your own website, on your own server. But again, you don't need to do that. That's just something that extra, if you have someone on your team, or if you're already knowledgeable, that's a way that you can sort of deploy it locally. But even if not, as you can see, there's a public URL that you can access. Let me see if I can pull that up. Okay, yeah, so this is what it looks like for the user. And let's just go ahead and try it out, and you can see what I worked on here. And I'll just give you an example, and then I'll show you what's going on under the hood. So this is what it does. So the chatbot says, think of an animal, but don't tell me what it is. I'm going to try and guess what animal you're thinking of in 20 questions or less. If I guess the right animal, just say you got it. Ready? And I'm going to think of an animal right now. Let's say a salamander. I'm going to say salamander. So you don't tell that, it has to guess. So you just say ready, and let's see what it asks. I'm just making some mental notes here, so two issues that we've encountered so far. It doesn't know how to respond to I don't know, and it sometimes asks the same question. Clearly we still have some bugs to work out. Better luck next time. Okay, let's fix you. So that's what it looks like when you're running it. Basically, that's what the user will see if you point them towards that URL for the app, and that's all running on Dify servers. But let's take a look at the prompt engineering tab, and here are the rules that I gave it. So the pre-prompt, this is the context that you give the model so it knows what it's supposed to do. And I said, you are playing a game with the user. Here are the rules of the game. The user is thinking of an animal. You have to guess what animal the user is thinking of by asking them questions. You can only ask questions that can be answered with yes or no. If you can guess the right animal within 20 questions, you win. If you cannot guess the right animal within 20 questions, you lose. Each time you ask a question, you have to tell the user how many questions you have left by saying, I have X questions remaining, X being the number of questions you have left. If the user says, you got it, then you successfully guess what animal they were thinking of, which means you win. Now let's add some more information here. If the user answers one of your questions with, I don't know, let's capitalize that. I don't believe it matters, but just looks neat. I don't know, then ask a different question instead without removing one of the questions, without changing the number of questions you have left. And then one more. Do not ask the same question multiple times. Okay. Let's confirm that. And if you wanted to add variables to your prompt, if you have something a little bit more complex than playing 20 questions, that's where you would add those, and that is if you wanted the user to provide a specific variable. And then context is where you import your data sets, and I'll talk about that in a little bit. And then this right here, opening remarks, this is the first message that the chatbot will send, and I have it to say, think of an animal, but don't tell me. See, that's what you saw in the preview. So we've got that. Let's go ahead and publish that. Oh, and that's the model that it's using, GPT 3.5 Turbo. And then this is also how you can tweak. If you are familiar with OpenAI or with using any of the GPT models, then you may know a little bit about how to adjust the temperature, how to adjust the maximum amount of tokens, things like that. And then there are some presets here which I like. So I have it set to be precise. I don't want it to try and go crazy. If you increase the temperature, the chat bots tend to be a little odd with some of their results. They get a little bit more creative, a little kooky. So that if you want to do creative, as you can see, it gets at a much higher temperature. But we're going to go ahead and keep that at that 0.2. I want it to be pretty simple because I want it to ask yes or no questions, so it doesn't have to get too crazy. But let's go ahead and publish that. So now that we've made those changes, let's go ahead and preview it and see how we do. This is our old chat. We'll just start a new chat. And this is also, if you're familiar with ChatGPT, this looks very similar. Only difference is we're using Dify this time. Think of an animal, but don't tell me what it is. Okay, let's try a little bit of an easier animal. Let's say a turtle, because it already guessed a turtle. It knows what a turtle is, so that's what I'm going to do. Turtle. Very easy. Ready. This is what I was afraid of. Okay, so this is what's going to happen if you try and use GPT-4 and you don't currently have access. That's one step that I should have mentioned, is when you start this up, you have to have an OpenAI account, and you have to generate an OpenAI API key. I won't show you how to do that because I do not want to reveal my key, but it is very simple, and there is detailed documentation on the Dify platform to walk you through that process. There's also detailed documentation on OpenAI that will tell you how to do that. We're doing turtle this time. Let's see how it does. Now, there was a glitch that I was encountering where if you just say yes when it asks what animal it's thinking of, it doesn't necessarily recognize that it got it right, and it may keep asking questions. That's why we have here, if I guess the right animal, just say you got it. So that's what I'm going to say. I'm going to say you got it. Great, I guessed it within 20 questions. Thanks for playing with me. And there you go. And that's basically how the app works. What's really cool about this is the sky's the limit. You really just have to have an idea and a little bit of prompt engineering know-how and just some testing, and it costs fractions of a penny because it just runs off of your OpenAI account, and it's very reasonably priced, especially for 3.5 Turbo. So that's essentially how that works. But let's go into some more impressive stuff. Okay, so now that you've seen how the chat app works and how to kind of mess with it, by the way, depending on who uses your apps once it goes public, this is how you can track the amount of messages people are using, how many tokens you're using, active users. I believe since we just messed around with this, it should show us, yeah, so we sent a few messages, we've had one user, which was me, and I've used 12,000 tokens, but as you can see, that only translates to 2 cents, so that's a pretty good deal if you ask me, for, you know, one of the most exciting things in tech, being able to just play around with it like a toy. That's fine, that's a price that I'm personally willing to pay. So let's go ahead and make a new app. Like I said before, this is powered by ChatGPT, or GPT 3.5 Turbo. That's the engine that I'm using. That's the model. But even if you were using GPT-4, which is the other model that it supports, OpenAI cut off the research to 2021. So anything past 2021, it doesn't really know. It has to guess, and sometimes it will hallucinate, which is when an AI model will just start making stuff up. And it sounds like it knows what it's talking about, but all of the stuff it's saying, it's nonsense. I know that Meta had a really bad problem with this with one of their earlier language models, and it is something that ChatGPT and OpenAI models will do as well. So one of the best ways to stop that is to make datasets, and one of the best ways to show that is by creating a model based on a dataset, based on something that did not exist in the year 2021. So my idea was to have a tool to help people who are playing the video game Elden Ring. So Elden Ring is a video game that came out in 2022. And if you test it, if you run a ChatGPT prompt, and if you ask it about Elden Ring, it doesn't understand what that is. It makes an educated guess. It does guess that it is a video game being made by a company, but it doesn't know anything about the game itself because when it was trained, the game hadn't come out yet, and there wasn't a whole lot of information about it. But now that it has come out, it's been about a year since it came out, there's a lot of information about it, a lot of information about the items. So it's an RPG, there are a lot of different items people can collect. So I want to create a bot where people can ask about a specific item, and then this bot can help them find that item. So let's get into it. So we do a text generator app, and as you can see, it looks almost exactly the same as the chatbot one that I made. The difference is mostly the model. So prompt engineering, as you can see, we're using Dify 003. I should remind you this is in beta, and a lot of these issues are probably going to be sorted out pretty quickly, especially after I show them in this video. But just keep that in mind. Use Dify. Dify's a good model anyway. So let's make this precise as well. And let's do the prefix prompt. And the prefix prompt is you are an expert in the video game Elden Ring. The user will ask you questions about items in the video game Elden Ring. You must help them answer these questions. It's a little redundant, me asking these things. You can probably shorten this quite a bit if you wanted to, and a clever prompt engineer could probably find a way to shorten this and still get the same thing. But, you know, that's the beauty of these models, is you can be so creative with your prompts, and you can get so many different responses with just a few tweaks. But this, I think, will be sufficient for what we need it to do. Okay, so here is our text generator app, and it's not going to work as is. For example, let me just show you what it would act like, just using the base model without any data, any context. I would just say, I want to ask this model, where do I find the discarded palace key? And let's see what it says. Can be found in the sewers located near the entrance to the palace. So I'm looking at the guide right now, and that's not how you get it. You get it by defeating an enemy. They give you that key. So that is not correct, but we can fix that. But that's an example of a hallucination. So that's something that sounds right, you know, located near the entrance to the palace. If I come up with like a fake item, okay, let's see if I can trick it into thinking that it's the where do I find Morgoth's AK-47 of Elden Ringing? Let's see what it says. Does not actually exist. It's some fan theories regarding the upcoming Elden Ring video game. So another convincing hallucination. As far as I know, No one else has come up with the idea of Morgoth's AK-47 of Elden Ringing, so there is no fan theories. The game's already out. They already know that that doesn't exist, so it is another convincing, but it is another hallucination. And you can also say that this was a bad prompt if you want to, and that kind of helps the training data. But let's go ahead and fix this. You know, as funny as that is, let's make something that people would actually want to use. As you can see, I started working on a dataset called Elden Ring items. And so to make this dataset, all you got to do is add some files. And as you can see, they're going to allow you to sync from Notion. So if you have an existing database of information, maybe customer information that you're trying to refer to, that's another great use for this tool. Is it could be internal if you want to find, like, who is the customer who ordered this many units? You know, that's something that you can do very soon. And then also if you have a website with some other information, that would be another way to do that. But we're just going to do it from text files. So I have some TXT files prepared. So automatic, let's do custom. And I actually, yeah, it was like that. And let's make the maximum segment length 1000. So in these text files, I added a special character combination here. Don't replace that. And let's see what it looks like. Perfect. This is exactly what I wanted. Yes. So let's confirm that. Yep. Index mode high quality. Yep. This is going to cost me, yeah, very little. That's great. I love that. Yeah, so I've got different data sets for each item. Sewing needle, ritual pot, talisman pouch. Perfect. So the key items are good, and let's add a few more files. And it's this easy. You just click and drag. You can upload text files. It also supports HTML with Markdown, PDF files as well. I suppose what I could have done was find a PDF copy of the full game strategy guide and upload that, but that would technically be piracy, so I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to use freely available online fan-made strategy guides that I have modified to fit the proper data formatting. And by doing it that way, I am confident that it will avoid the issue of hallucination, while also understanding what I'm asking of it. You know, it's a little bit neater for me to see, and I think it's a little bit neater for it to read. 62 paragraphs. Very nice. This is absolutely what I wanted. Cool. So golden seeds, NPCs, map fragments, and key items. So NPCs, let's try nomadic merchant. If we do hit testing, where do I find the nomadic? It would probably help if you spell it right. Where do I find the nomadic merchant? What does it give me? Nomadic merchant. Nomadic merchant. Okay. Cool. Looks like he's found at a couple different spots. Then there's some similar merchants: the hermit merchant, the isolated merchant, the abandoned merchant. Okay. Now let's try that question again. Where do I find the nomadic merchant? Let's see what it says. The nomadic merchant can be found near the eastern edge of Saintsbridge, sitting near a campfire on the roadside. Let's try a different question, which is, how do I get the telescope? To get the telescope, you need to purchase it from Merchant Kale. Awesome. That is the exact right answer. Very cool. Okay, let's run a few more tests just to see if we got it right. Where can I find the Shabiri grape? What does it have to say? Several locations, okay. Second is the Purified Ruins. Cool, that is exactly what it said in the database. So it is pulling from the database correctly. But I am curious about those golden seeds. I would love a golden seed, so let's try this. How many golden seeds can I find in Limgrave? You can find 6 golden seeds in the Limgrave section, okay. Yeah, that's perfect. So this isn't word for word what it says in the dataset. It is a truncated version that directly answers the user's question. I feel like I could probably get that extra information if I rephrased my question. What are their exact locations? Yes. As you can see, it's giving me essentially the same information. It's just rephrasing it slightly. It's still accurate. This is all essentially what it says in the dataset. This is amazing. This is exactly what I wanted it to do. It just takes a little bit of modification. So design and modify, do it for you. I mean, as you can see, that's what's going on here. So it's perfect. So yeah, so why should you use Dify? I think that there are use cases for beginners, kind of intermediate level professionals, and then experts. And so if you're a beginner, Dify is a fantastic introduction to the world of LLMs and AI. Like, if you've never used ChatGPT before, it's very user-friendly, just like ChatGPT. It's got all of the features of the like playground aspect of OpenAI. It also has that user-friendliness that you get from the research preview of ChatGPT. It feels like the best of both worlds. You get all the functionality, you get all of the ease of use, and you don't really miss out on anything, and you even get some extra features because of that dataset thing. So if you're a professional, if you have a business that maybe doesn't currently have any kind of AI aspect to it, but you feel like there's some exposure there, there's some potential for disruption, and you want to get in on that, Dify is the best way to easily integrate it into any part of your pipeline. Like I was saying before, if you have like a customer service chatbot, and I know people hate those things. I personally hate those things. I have to deal with them all the time. They're such a pain. But being able to use something like ChatGPT and being able to imagine using that data set to like upload a bunch of FAQs and answers people commonly ask, or like resources that they may need, that is a really easy way to do that. And then they can talk to it like a human and get that information they need. You know, that's just one thing that I was thinking of. I'm sure that if you take some time and kind of tinker around with this tool, you can come up with a bunch of really cool ones as well. It's so quick, it's so easy to like build on and to iterate on. You know, it's painless. It really is. Then finally, if you're an expert, if you've already been using LLMs, if you already know how to do basically every step of this process, you know, if you were into LLMs before, it was cool if you knew about GPT before ChatGPT, if you were messing around with GPT-3 or maybe GPT Instruct or anything like that, you can still get some use out of it too. Like I said before, they're integrating Notion. They're going to be integrating the ChatGPT plugins. They're going to be allowing you to use like an Excel spreadsheet or a CSV file for your data sets. It's going to start integrating some other LLMs. I know that Meta's is very interesting. And then Google Bard and some others. I imagine they'll start, I mean, they didn't say this, maybe I shouldn't say this, but I feel like they're going to probably get some image generation tools integrated as well. You know, I mean, especially with GPT-4, I know that can accommodate some of the image prompts and sort of image generations. So it's just a really cool space. It's really exciting. It's very fast-paced. You should definitely be a part of it. I highly, highly recommend this tool. Check it out for yourself. Go ahead and check out the link, and thank you for watching.